Another chapter review discussion. This will be definitely a shorter video. We're on chapter 3 of direct democracy. Here we go. So this is important because this is the California politics chapter, so it should be around week 6 when you're watching this video. And hopefully you have this book by now. And again, if you have the older version with a little dated with information with regards to who's in office, that's fine. It's not the biggest deal. Or if you have a newer version that has Gavin Newsom as governor, I don't find it problematic because the California Constitution and these kind of institutions aren't going to change too much, and so this will be definitely a shorter video. So these key terms are in the chapter itself, but these actually come from the end of the American government chapters on voting and elections, chapter 7. And so we have these definitely key terms here in the blue. Hopefully you're not colorblind or not. I don't know, but this is the color blue if you are colorblind. Sorry. So we have direct democracy, right? So it's really, really important. As I'm recording this, we actually just did our first meeting on the Friday of week 1. And we spent quite a bit of time talking about democracy being the U.S. government being a liberal democratic republic. And so that is actually a different kind of system than a direct democracy. So in a direct democracy, which California is kind of like, right, is when political questions go directly to the voting public for a decision. So we do this all the time with some of these other things in California, which are going to happen, upcoming soon in November, with propositions and things like that. And so that's when the people, propose law, and then once it gets accepted or gets enough signatures, it goes before the people during an election, when an election is held, for a vote by the people. So again, democracy means rule by the people, and so I've said people several times, and so you can see how this is a kind of the true democratic product when it's working in this kind of way. So then again, in our kind of politics, we have these different examples of direct democracy. So again, these are key terms that we all want to know for the exam. And this is the only California chapter that will be on the midterm, right? The other ones will be on our final. So what's a referendum? These ask citizens to confirm or repeal a decision made by the government, right? So the government does something, and so then people might go, we want a referendum on that. So the last one, I think it was last year, so it would have been 2019, maybe before, is California did a I think it was a gas tax or something like that, and so now we have to pay for higher gasoline at the pump, and then that passed, but then people were like, maybe this is a bad idea. So then they had a referendum on that, and I think it's still passed. But that's an example of a referendum, right, where now they're kind of deciding whether we should or should not have a gas tax. So they were trying to repeal the gas tax. Maybe you heard that in the news, but using a referendum. So then we have this idea of an initiative and a proposition. So it's very important to remember that these terms are related. So an initiative essentially is a proposal for a new law or policy. And a proposition is an initiative that gets enough signatures that gets on the ballot. So they're essentially the same thing. They're both examples of initiatives, but a proposition is an initiative that gets onto the ballot. So a law or constitutional amendment proposed and passed by citizens of a state. Right? So these are related but different key terms. So you want to know their different usage. Then we have a recall. This usually has to do with actual politicians. This allows voter to decide whether or not to remove a government official from office. And so, most of you probably won't know this. This is kind of in my millennial wheelhouse. But when I was about your age, the state of California repealed this governor named Gray Davis. And then at the same time, when they do a recall, you vote to have a recall. So then they be passed, that. But on the same day, on the same voting day, you go, okay, if the recall occurs, if there's enough of a vote for the recall, then you vote for a new governor as well. And there are many, many different candidates. And during that period, right, we famously had Arnold Schwarzenegger, who, if you don't know, is like a famous movie star, and he became the governor of the state, right, through this recall process. And then he, on his own, won re-election as well. So actually, on all the current degrees I have, all of them, Schwarzenegger's name's on the degrees, right? Okay. The state of California's form of government or governance is a hybrid government. I'm going to read that again because it's probably important. The state of California's form of governance is a hybrid government, right? This means that part of California's system is representative, meaning like we elect people to go to Sacramento. So we have a governor an assembly, which is kind of like the House of Representatives, and a Senate, which is kind of like the Senate at the federal level. And then there are other things in which people directly make decisions, right? So famously, especially, there's a lot of economy with regards to this next issue I'm going to talk about that's been springing up in the desert cities, right? Is the legalization of marijuana. So there's all these kind of dispensaries. I think Mike Tyson's going to have like a recreational ranch out there in that area with regards to pot and vacationing. And that was achieved through direct democracy. People established an initiative, it gained enough signatures, became a proposition, got onto the ballot. The ballot's thing you actually vote on during the election, right? And it passed. When direct democracy is employed, it means that the people, meaning citizens and voters specifically, make political decisions for themselves. So they don't want to rely on people in Sacramento. They don't want to rely on elected officials. So again, this is one of the really kind of cool features of California. I know there are other states that have the system. Most do not, but I don't know them because I'm not an expert and we don't have to know it for this class. But there are a few other states that have a similar system to us. In a representative system, right, the elected officials, right, the governors, the assembly people, the Congress people, they make laws and policies for the people, right? So they do this work for us and debate and do research so that we don't have to, so we can raise our families and have vacations. If voters do not like those decisions, then they will have to wait to the next election and vote in a person. Right? That will make the desired changes. Right. So again, if you don't like the way Gavin Newsom is running the state of California, you're going to have to wait to the next election to vote him in or out. Or, which people try and do now, in this election, they'll try and recall him. So again, that's something that can happen in California where you cannot recall a president. Right. So if Biden is going to win in November, and a lot of you don't happen to like Biden, like you have to wait 4 years to vote for somebody else at the federal level. There are advantages and disadvantages to both styles of governance, meaning direct democratic and representative. And California has both, so we are a hybrid system. It means we have both parts, the same way like if you had a hybrid car, it has a gas engine and it runs on electrical energy through a battery, so we call it a hybrid car. That's what we mean by when we have a hybrid government. We have direct democratic components and representative components, if that makes sense. California's hybrid system aims to maximize both systems' advantages while minimizing their disadvantages, right? So the founders of this state thought this would be the best way to, put checks and balances and things like that. Through this kind of federalism, so you guys should know that term from our other chapters. From the reading, direct initiatives give Californians, meaning us, the people, the power to propose state constitutional amendments and laws, so we can change our constitution here through these initiative process that fellow citizens will vote on without the legislature's involvement, right? So it's just a kind of way of bypassing what oftentimes in parlance gets called like the swamp, the political swamp, the professional politicians that get paid to be professional politicians, right? California's legislature is barred from making any changes to the citizens' ballot initiative, right? So they're kind of barred out from it. In order to qualify for the ballot, a requisite number of signatures must be gathered in a specific amount, in a specified amount of time, or the Secretary of State, which is, again, we'll get to this chapter, the executive branch is really, really important. You want to know who that is and what this position does. And basically authorize elections and propositions and things like that. Will not authorize direct democratic measure. This is really, really important fact to remember. 75% of proposed initiatives fail to make the ballot, right? In other words, these initiatives do not become ballot propositions. So basically it means they didn't get enough signatures to get onto the ballot. That's what that basically means. So I don't know if you've ever been in the supermarket or, you have people collecting signatures and, well, hey, are you for this or for that? Please sign this. And that's how in the state you essentially authorize an initiative to become a proposition. You sign your name to something and they verify that you're a resident of the state. In California, citizens can propose laws at the city, county, and state level. Any registered voter may propose a law via an initiative statute or change the state's constitution. Both can pass by simple majority approval. Again, to get on the ballot, people must gather hundreds of thousands of signatures for statewide propositions. So there is a significant time and money cost associated with the system, right? So there are professional, essentially, organizations, political organizations that do this. So there's still kind of like the interest groups that get involved with this kind of stuff because it's going to be very hard for a true grassroots where you and me and just our friends go around and getting signatures because we have jobs, we have families, right? So there's still this kind of different kind of political mess in California, but it's a mess nonetheless. I should have been a rapper in another life. Interest groups now dominate California's direct democratic apparatus, which is now often utilized to circumvent regular lawmaking channels, right? So if a special interest thinks they can get something passed, like maybe the pot industry, and they don't want to waste time haggling and arguing with people in the state legislature because they're going to want their cut of the pot money and taxation, they're just going to go to the people, which is a good thing and a bad thing, right? Depending on what the issue is. So again, when we're moving through this chapter, preparation stage, drafting, public review, and titling of the initiatives, right? So step one basically is drafting or writing up the proposition. So meant to be a law, so we want problems to be addressed beforehand. So there's like technical write-up that has to occur and review. Proposed initiatives must be submitted to the state attorney general with a $2,000 fee, right? So there is a kind of modest cost to do this. You need at least two grand, where it will be posted online for a 30-day public viewing period. During this time, there can be changes. This time, changes to the initiative can occur, right? So people are going to see the public viewing, have their feedback, and then change or suggest changes they want to happen. Then the Attorney General assigns a title to the initiative, like the marijuana initiative or something like that. And then which is really, really kind of contentious, the Attorney General writes up a 100-word or less summary with regards to the proposition. So that becomes very political about how that politician writes it, right? So you can imagine if there's some kind of, like, say, Republican initiative, and this Attorney General is going to be, a Democrat in California, they might kind of like not be in favor of it, right? So there's a lot of politics and political games played around how the summary gets worded and how it gets titled. After this occurs, no more changes can be made. Right? After this, no more changes can be made. If the Attorney General requests, the state can also prepare a fiscal analysis, right? So the state Attorney General is responsible for doing all these things, and they're going to go, okay, well, how much is this going to cost, or how is this going to work, right? So again, seems reasonable, seems like the state's doing what's supposed to. The second stage really is this qualification then for the ballot. So it must circulate petitions to the people who are in favor of this initiative with the official title given to it by the Attorney General. And summary, and gather enough valid voter signatures to qualify, right? So oftentimes you might, be traveling, I travel quite a distance when I go to the desert, and if I were to sign the same proposition initiative, where I live in there, but it is only going to count once. So people have to go and review that, because you can't count for two signatures. A valid signature comes from a registered voter from the county in which the petition was signed. Signatures requirement based on the percentage of all votes cast for the governor in the previous election, right? So let's say, 20 million people voted for governor last time, then these percentages, that's how much you would need the signatures to get. So they change every year, but the percentages don't change, right? Because the number of people who vote change every year. But you're going to need quite a bit, right? So figure millions of people, regardless, vote for governor every 4 years. And so 5% of that's going to be, hundreds of thousands of signatures more than likely. And that's just for initiatives. You need 8% for a change in the constitutional amendment, right, of the state constitution. So we have the federal U.S. Constitution, but then California has its own constitution as well. There's a 180-day period within which you're allowed to get these signatures. So there's a time limit, right? You can't do more than that or go past your 180-day limit to get the signatures, right? Because I could be like some really unpopular initiative, and I spend 10 years getting the signatures. That kind of means it's not very popular, right? So if you can get it, it kind of means that it expresses the will of the people. If you can get enough signatures in the kind of short amount of time, it's several months, 6 months, and collect records and signatures. Complete petitions must be sent to the appropriate election official, usually a county clerk or a register to vote. So a lot of ins and outs you're not going to need to know, but maybe these percentages you're going to want to know and how that works. In some of these positions that make these decisions, like the Attorney General, with regards to formulating and titling. And then we get here to these must be verified within 131 days before the election. If validated, right, then you get to the Secretary of State, which is a very important position in our state of California. Certifies the petition and gives the initiative a proposition number, right? So it ends up being the Secretary of State that's in charge of like basically all elections that occur in California. So this person is going to be very important in other states in particular, but still in California, because we're going to have a lot of probably voting issues at the federal level in this next election with regards to mail-in ballots and things like that. Simple majority comprises 50% plus one. That's all that's needed to pass an initiative, or a recall. So So if you get 50% of the vote plus one person, so basically the majority is another way of saying that, then you win that election. And then you get a supermajority, or 2/3, or 66%. Probably didn't think you're going to get this much math in this class. When you pass a general bond, so that's like raising money, the state borrows. So you're basically authorizing the state to borrow money. And 55% for school bonds, right? So it's a little higher, not as high as this, but because everyone likes schools and kids and things like that. Initiative laws usually go in effect after an election occurs. Depends. I think the pot one from a couple years ago took effect January 1st. It took actually a couple months. And they'll let you know all that stuff. So that's our recording and our information for this chapter, Direct Democracy. A lot of key terms, but not the most in-depth information. But obviously, I kind of help you out here. Know this, know that, know these. Okay, cool. So it's like 100 degrees in my house. So I'm going to try and get a couple more videos done and then take a break. So I will see everyone in another video. Adios.